Hey yo, it's your boy Kaliko. Today on Chasing Fire, I'm going to be showing you how I built myself what I like to call my drip or dry system. It is an enclosed area for you to carve gemstones, either wet or dry, and keep all of the dust and spatter inside one concise area so that you can clean it easily and you don't get silicosis and you can keep anybody else from being polluted also. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know I'm one of those guys that likes to just sort of make it work with what I have. If I can afford to go out and buy the best things for the job, then I definitely do that. A lot of times I can't necessarily afford the things I would like, so I have to find a way to make those things on my own. So this item was one born out of necessity, and it was also born out of I saw something similar like this for sale online through Dremel 4Drum. They had something similar to this, not quite what I'm building. And I also saw something on a jeweler's website for people that work gold, for carving gold, and it collects the gold so that they can then sift it and get the chips that they've, taken off of the jewelry that they're working on in manufacturing, and then they can reprocess that gold again, and so that there's no waste inside of their jewelry making. And that's really what sort of gave me the idea. The only problem is that one of the inexpensive systems runs about $1,500 to $2,000. That includes a carving area and a vacuum system that pulls the dust out of the air. The only issue with that system is that you can't really use it wet. There's a lot of metal involved that'd probably rust if you tried to use it wet, and the vacuum system might get damaged if you tried to use it wet. Whereas with this system that we're going to build, you can use it wet or dry. It's completely up to you and what you're carving at that time. Now, one of the great things about this system that I've put together is that if you need to, you can completely break this down and take it wherever you need to relatively fast. Also, the sides of it are built with plexiglass, so they're easy to pull out and clean. And also, if you wanted to do some work in public where people can actually see the work that you're doing and observe it while you're doing it, the plexiglass really helps with that. Now, I put a recessed receptacle underneath to catch the water so that it wouldn't be building up and that it had a nice drip spot. I also made a spot on top for light to go through so that you could have a light on top if you needed to, or if you wanted to put a camera like I do, you could set it right on top of the plexiglass and it'll see right down into the bowl. Now, I purchased everything for the wet system from Lowe's. Now, besides the fact that I'm local to this specific store, so it was really convenient for me to come here, they will also cut the acrylic glass for me, the plexiglass, at no extra charge and at the exact specifications I need. So go ahead and check with your local store and see if they do the cutting for you so you don't have to do it yourself. Now, this is the exact size of a piece of acrylic plexiglass we're going to want to get, a 32-inch by 44-inch piece, and relatively thin. We don't need it that thick. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 32 by 44-inch piece and have the gentleman cut it into 4 pieces for us. One 32 by 13 3/4, two 11 by 13 3/4, and one 11 by 7 1/2. Now, I tried to order everything by section of the store it'll be in. These Dremel pieces are in the hardware section, and this wood bit is the one you're going to want to get. If you don't already have a quick release for a Dremel tool, you're also going to want to get that. And those at the store tend to run between $15 and $20 because you have to buy them in a set. For some reason, they don't have them just as the quick release Dremel bit by itself. So I went with the $20 set to get the other stuff just to end up having it in case I need it. Although me carving rocks, I don't tend to need most of the crap that's in this thing. And if you plan on doing the dry vacuum system with the shop vac, you might as well pick up this 32-inch Mega Twist gear tie now if they have it. A lot of times this one's not available in store and you're just going to have to purchase it online, but it's a must-have for the dry system. Now, the reason I chose the larger of the two shelving units that seemed like they would be appropriate for this job is I wanted enough space for my 2-gallon bucket and enough space to end up putting any tools I wanted to have on hand close to me. You absolutely have to get a set of these 1.5-inch heavy-duty grippers. They work as the feet on the bottom of your workstation and keep it from sliding around while you're working. At the time of recording this video, I found this clip-on LED light with a articulating neck, and it ends up being one of my favorite lights of all time. I've gone back and purchased 2 more at the $20 price range. Grab your 2-gallon bucket. They typically run you $2 to $3. Now, the first time I built something like this drip system, I used all copper fittings. And 1, it tends to be a little bit more expensive, but 2, it does not work as well or last as long for what we're going to be using this time. So don't buy any of this stuff. It's just going to be more than a pain in the neck than it's worth. And this clear tubing and all of the fittings that work with this clear tubing works much better than the stuff that was in the brass section. It 100% is easier because of the way that it inserts into the valves. You just push it in to plug it in, and to get it out, you just hold the valve and then pull the tube out, and it just pops right out. Now, all of these items are in the list that is both in the description and that I put on the screen a little bit earlier. So you can find a full list of all of these pieces and how you would ask for them inside the store in those places. Now, believe it or not, my Lowe's did actually have a pool noodle in it, and it cost me like $3 or something like that, but you definitely need it. Now, that's everything from shopping at Lowe's. There's only 2 more items to put together the wet system we need. Hot glue number 1, and number 2, we need our receptacle for capturing the water. Both these things are mucho importante, and I was able to find them at Walmart, my most hated shopping place. I'm sure you can find them at Target or even online somewhere. The next place we're going to head to is the Home Depot. The reason I chose the Home Depot over Lowe's was simply because their vacuum was more powerful and smaller than the ones that were provided at Lowe's. So I was able to get a vacuum that had more horsepower and a better suction for about $65 and another $30 for the HEPA filter, but that seemed to be the same price at both stores. And the HEPA filter is the most important part to me of the whole dry system. You have to have a HEPA filter because that means it catches particles that are so small that there's no chance that you can get silicosis or any sort of lung disease from carving as long as it's being drawn into that HEPA filter. If you're doing a dry system, depending on where you plan on having your vacuum, you're going to need at least 1 extension hose for the system. At least 1 to go from the vacuum hose up into your carving area. Now, if you plan on putting your vacuum, say, in the attic so you don't have to hear it, you're going to need many more, and you're going to want to do proper measurements so you buy the proper amount of hose. This muffler diffuser helps a little bit. It's pretty much just better than nothing. If you didn't buy your 32-inch mega gear tie, now's a good time to get it. You're definitely going to need it if you're building the dry system. Being that I'm using a shop vac to be drawing all the air from my workstation, I know it's going to be extremely loud, and since I don't have an attic that I can put my shop vac in and run a hose down from, I'm going to build myself a little silencer box out of this styrofoam and some of this foam right here. I'm going to put the box together, and it's going to quiet it down a little bit. I've already done it. It didn't quiet it down as much as I was hoping it was going to, but it's definitely a lot better than nothing and better than it was with the vacuum just sitting in the open air next to me. Now, I chose this Loctite foam, and it ended up being the right choice. Alright, so I've used this to give myself a rough outline on the bottom. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to make this taller to where this sits underneath of this, and this can drip into this part as the reservoir. So, in order to do that, I actually want... Whoops, dropping my tape measure. I actually want the hole to be smaller than this opening is. So I'm going to use this outline, to mark the top on where I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to get my measurements. Figure I'm going to need to take out these anyways. So we'll go just right to about where those are, maybe just outside of those on each side, and that should fit where my container should fit right under that. Should go about 10 inches, 10.5 inches from the outside on each side. Yep, 10.5 inches from the outside. I would say 4 inches. So I'm going to go 4 inches right here. I'm going to mark that on this side. So I'm going to go 4 inches. I'm just going to make me a line right there. And then from this side we were it's not very front enough. And I mean, I can see the lines on where the bracers are inside of this piece. Well, I wasn't straight. That was a horrible line I just marked there. For this top area, we just want to make sure that it's going to drip into the reservoir. So we want it smaller than that is. That gives me an idea on where I need to cut up top. Go back to my markings on the back. Now this actually needs to be able to sit in here. So in order for this to sit inside of this, I need to remove all of these bracers that I have the Because of the length of the flex shaft, I'm not quite able to cut out all of the plastic bracers, and also because they're attached to the top as well as to the sides of each other, I'm going to end up prying them out using some of these pliers and tin snips. It's a little bit of manpower, but it's not too difficult. While removing these bracers on the bottom side of this, we want to make sure that we make it the right size for the dish. We want it to almost hold the dish snugly to where the dish isn't going to slide around or anything like that if we accidentally bump it. It's a little bit of manpower, but it's not too difficult. Alright, I think I got a bunch of the areas broken out that I have to break out. And I think now Wow, that seems pretty good. That spot might not be too great. Sort of edge showing, but make sure that we make it the right size for the dish. We want it to almost hold the dish snugly to where the dish isn't going to slide around or anything like that if we accidentally bump it. Burnt plastic nubs everywhere. And here we have our bottom section for our workstation. The hole should be fit just right at this point, and now we need to make some legs for it. So let's do that. We're going to take our measurements, and it's going to be about 3.5 inches is about where we're going to want to cut the legs off at. Now I like to make 3 or 4 marks going around the circle so that I know where I want to be cutting when I'm cutting, whether I'm cutting with a plastic knife or a Dremel tool the way I am now. Make sure you use one leg for as many pieces as you can because you're going to have a use for the extra legs later, so you don't want to cut them all up. All right, let's run a test real quick. My bootsy legs. In general, does it work? Yes. Is it tall enough? Yes. Now the creation of your reservoir holder, your water holder bucket is really easy. I use hot glue to do this, and the reason that I use hot glue, well, one of the reasons I use hot glue is because it's much more, it's harder than, the reason I use hot glue is because it's harder than silicone. That's the main reason I use hot glue, is that it not only seals the hole up watertight, but it also gives the spout a little bit of rigidity, so it's hard in there, and it's not, you know, easily wiggled back and forth and the seal broken like with silicone. I've had that problem multiple times with silicone. Now, how I put the hole in the bucket this time, I just took a little torch lighter like this, heated up a section, and then stuck the nozzle in, and I ended up with a big hole on the bottom. Now last time what I did is I just heated up the tip of my screwdriver and then poked it in and moved it around until the hole was big enough. Instead of wasting plastic and doing this another time for the camera, I figured I'd just explain it to you and you could figure that one out on your own, because it is really easy. You get the plastic hot, you make a hole big enough for that, you put that in, you get some hot glue hot, you smear it around, you filled up the whole hole. I tend to get the whole, a big piece of the hot glue hot at once, but we'll be going over that because I'm going to use hot glue here in a second. Now, the one problem I do have with my bucket is that I did not make the water spout closer to the bottom of the bucket, so it doesn't quite drain as good as it could. So the piece of advice I would give you is make sure that you put the hole for your water spout as low on the bucket as possible without actually poking a hole through the bottom of the bucket. It'll drain much better that way. You can get this bag of hot glue pretty much at Target or Walmart or anywhere. It's just regular old hot glue, and it works pretty well for it's going to work perfectly for this project. It works really well on anything that's not going to get too warm because it's hot glue. So if it gets too warm, it's not going to really be hard anymore. It's going to turn soft and runny, and then it's not going to hold well. So on that note, you definitely want to use it on stuff that's not going to create heat in any way, shape, or form. Now, when I originally measured the bottoms of these pipes, I measured 1.5 inches, and that's not quite what it is. It's a little bit bigger than 1.5 inches. The inside diameter is 1.5 inches, and the outside diameter of these is 1.5 inches. So these will actually fall inside of the feet that we've made, and we really need these feet on the legs. I guess I should say the legs that we've made. These are the legs we've made. These are going to be the feet. Without these rubber feet, these legs will slide all over a plastic surface or a hard surface. So we want to make sure that our workstation is really stable and stuck to whatever surface we put it on, and these feet work really well. So being that I MacGyver just about everything, we're going to use hot glue. And this is going to be a good sort of tip on how I tend to heat my hot glue up, is that I like to keep it vertical, and I like to let the hot glue build on itself. But you got to be careful. There's a fine line between it's working well and it's starting to travel down itself to it's going to drip all over my hand and burn me, or I'm going to get it all over the carpet and ruin my carpet. So we don't want to do any of that. I can see it's running. Whoops, you're not in camera shot. I can see it's running. See, it's sort of mushroomed. Now I'm going to take that, I'm just going to run it right along the edge here, and I'm going to try and keep the molten glue along the edge. I don't want it all dripping down the sides on the inside or the outside. I just want a nice little build up. Now the other size they have of these are like 2.5 inches. They're so big that you pretty much need to, now that it's cooled just a hair, I'm going to put this on there and I'm going to wiggle it back and forth, and I just want it to sort of sit on top of that hot glue, and I want that hot glue to dry out. And that should create my foot really well. Pretty does not matter to me near as much as functionability does. I like things that function really well. If I make it myself and it's ugly as hell, I don't care as long as it works really well. Being that I work with a lot of rocks and dirt, you know, it's not like I'm in the workshop trying to impress anybody. That's for sure. Once again, I want to keep the molten glue at the top. I don't really want it, you know, running all down inside. And I'm not wanting it to dry, but I'm letting it get a little bit tacky and letting it cool just a hair. You know what I forgot to do? I didn't pull the paper off the bottom of these things. I hope they stick well, because the paper, the bottoms of them are sticky, and this is the original paper came on. I didn't even think about, whoops, I didn't even think about doing that. So now it is what it is. I'm just going to make it on all four. Did it with the first two. Might as well make them matching. Alright, we've let it sit for, 5-10 minutes, and we can touch them and feel that the glue is nice and hard. The feet feel firmly attached. They have a nice little spring to them, actually. Now this one I'm using is recycled, so it's got, stuff all over it. But it doesn't slide at all now with just a little bit of pressure. It's very sticky to a table, which is exactly what you want. So that works really well. Now we can slide our water catcher underneath. Now the top, I've already pre-cut, and I don't have enough extra pieces to pre-cut another one of these or cut another one of these on film. It's really rather simple though. All I did was, I didn't even use my Dremel. I just used these clippers, but depending on the hand strength you have, it was not easy on hand strength because this plastic is thick. So what I did is I made notches where I wanted the plastic to slide. Got a notch here, running through there, and this notch is rather large because I wasn't exactly sure where I was going to end up having the plastic sit, and I didn't think it would matter that much considering I was still going to have the back piece, which the back piece is 32 inches, and I made the notches angled to where it was easy for it to sort of slide in. And I did the same thing on the other side. Just went and clipped and notched the the plastic so I could slide my windows in there. Now, when I made my top section, as you can tell, I didn't even measure where I cut for my window. What I did is I cut just inside where the cross beams are. That would be smaller than how my window is, so that it would be able to support more weight on top. And then I used a 1/2-inch drill bit to drill the hole for my water line, and that ended up needing to be a little bit wider, so I just widened it out using the same drill bit and some angle since it was plastic. Now, being that the hot glue is removable, or you can just heat it up and remove the window, I just use that to attach my top window piece. So anytime I want to clean the window off, if I don't want to take apart the whole unit, which is really easy to do, and that's what I do anyways, I can just warm the hot glue up with a hairdryer or something like that and pull the window off. Now this is the 32-inch. There we go. Now let's look at it, slide it up inside the notches I made for it. And get it to kick back, and there it goes. Put our side pieces of plastic in. They go like this. Now I have this top window up here, which cut out the same way, and then use the extra piece of plexiglass off of our 32-inch piece to make this top window. And the reason for the top window is to help extra light come in. That's part of the reason we use plexiglass on this all the way around, is to let light come in from all angles, and so that we can put lights on here and position them where we want. I have a hole drilled right here, and this hole is for a water drip line and the control for it. Alright, so our water catcher goes right there. See, the side's not really latched on anything in the back up there. It's just sliding through that notch right there because it's not quite that tall. Now the back one has to have its notches that it runs through, especially right here and right there. Here and right there. They just tend to be deeper. This bows out just a little bit like that. Alright, where's our bucket? Bucket's gonna go right here. Now last time I did something with a bucket like this, I used copper fittings and a different kind of water hose, but that is really meant for high pressure, and these are in general way easier to use because if it pulls out, well, you hold it in and then it'll pull out. It's only rated for a light amount of pressure, not a lot, but it also plugs in like that and doesn't take a lot of work and doesn't really rust out. So it's really convenient because it's bingo, bango, bongo. And you're in. Now we wanted to save two of the legs. And I tend to use them for hanging lights on or clipping lights on and other things. Also, this is super useful for directing your water line exactly where you want it. With these two items together, the water line points exactly where you want it to point. It's super awesome. Now I just take this and I attach them together using a nice sandwich bag twist tie. You could use a rubber band, although I don't think it'll last as long. Just about anything you want that'll do the job, and the job is to be able to be bent wherever you want it, however you want it, and still drip just fine. And there we go with that part. Looking like we're getting somewhere. I'm going to melt some of this hot glue real quick so I can attach my top window covering plate again. This is where the extra legs come in. They're great to clamp onto. They're wide, and the clamps for lamps hold really tightly on them because of how wide they are. So you can put your light outside of your work area, shining in, shining directly down, and put it to where it's right over your shoulder, which is really, really helpful. There we go. So pushing the top down, and it wasn't inside of its, there we go. Yeah, if you push the top real tight, then you definitely want to make sure that you have your notches and your plexiglass sitting in your notches, or your plexiglass will get all bent out of shape and might end up shattering on you, which that would be bad. So, looks like you're done. It looks like as a wet system, this will work, right? Just go ahead and stop the video, but it's not ready yet. This won't even work for the bare minimum. And the reason this won't work for the bare minimum is because if you're like me, I support myself on my forearms while I'm carving. I don't hold my arms up in the air. So if you go to support yourself on this edge right here, it's going to cut the circulation off in your wrists and hands, and you're going to start having tendon problems if you don't already start losing the finger in your feelings and losing feelings in your fingers and stuff like that. So the real easy solution, once again, is hot glue. It's as usable as duct tape. It really is. And that $3 pool noodle. There's about the length we want. I'm going to give it a little bit of a lip that comes over, so I'm actually going to go like right there. There we go. That should be plenty. And this is going to serve a dual purpose. One, it's going to pad for the forearms, and number two, it'll also help direct any water that gets over here back into the bowl instead of, back onto your lap. So we might need to do something about a little lip over here to do the same thing in the future, but we'll find out. Go ahead and tear it in half. See how I did that? Made the slices right where I want them, and then just tear it in half. Now, perfect tabs of this thing seem to fit really well. They seem to grab really well. It also looks like it's going to be the insides of the circles that are really touching the plastic. So it looks like I need to hot glue here on the edges of that, like on this line, and that'll really, because this is up in the air. These edges are up in the air, so we want to do the inside edges with the hot glue, and then place them where we want them and hold them for a minute. I think that's enough. We'll find out when I go to put it on. Oh yeah, don't want it too hot. It's melting the plastic a little bit. actually melting the pool noodle a tad. Alright, let's see how it goes. It felt sticky as soon as I touched it. Felt like it nailed right where I wanted it to be. Let's do the other one. Ooh, it almost dripped on me. I just saved myself from getting hit by the drip. Alrighty, here we go. Oh, a little bit too close. I wanted to leave a little bit of space because I don't want to trap my plexiglass in there. I want my plexiglass to be able to move freely. And there you go. Now, of course, you know, to make sure everything works properly, you always want to test it. Drop some water in your bucket, turn your spigot on. And that's the end of part 1 of this video. If you're not going to make the dry system, this is all you need for the wet system. But if you're going to make the dry system, then keep on following along in this video and we will make the dry system. And I'll show you how I made a box to make mine a little bit quieter. It's not as quiet as I'd like it to be, but it's definitely better than nothing. As you can tell, I have removed my extension hose out of its box, and I also have my Mega Twist right there next to me. And I was initially trying to figure out how to make the hose to where I could articulate it and put it where I wanted it to be, and I figured that out. So what I'm doing now is I'm using a Sharpie pen to make a circle just as wide as the tube on the mouthpiece. Now I actually want to make my square just a little bit wider than the circle. Not a lot wider, just a little bit wider, because it's going to be what helps hold the hose and also what helps hold the Mega Twist in place. Now that we've cut our hole, don't forget to remove all those pesky little plastic nubs that are built from this wood cutting bit. Now we're going to feed our hose to the top of the workstation, and we want to put the nozzle down on the bottom of the workstation. That's going to be about the perfect length. Now you're going to want to go and get your zip ties and your gear tie handy, because they're going to be used for our next spot right here. You're going to want to take your 32-inch Mega Twist gear tie and divide it just about equally in half, and you're going to want to stick one half down one side of a corner of the square that we cut in the top of the workstation, and the other side down another corner of the square that we cut, and you're going to want to leave the looped end on the back so it catches the hose at the top of the workstation. Now you're going to want to work the two ends down sort of back and forth to get them to slide down without catching too hard on the edges of the top. You want the ends to come to just at the end of where the bendability is in the hose. We're going to zip tie the gear tie to the hose, one piece on each side, and we're going to zip tie it tight. We want each zip tie to be very tight so it holds to the gear tie very tight. And we also want to put one zip tie about every inch or so, maybe even a half an inch. The better that the hose is attached to the gear tie, the better that the hose is going to articulate when we want to move it. Now don't forget to add a couple of zip ties to the top of your hose, also on the outside of your workstation. Now I trimmed my zip ties with scissors, but after that they're really sharp on the ends, so I used a hot butter knife to sort of round the edges of the zip ties so that if I catch my arm on it at any time, I'm not going to get scratched really bad. If you've ever had that happen, you know it sort of sucks. Now your drip or dry workstation is finished itself, but if you want your vacuum to be a little bit quieter, keep watching this video. If you don't mind that the vacuum is super loud, or you have some place to put it like an attic or a closet where you can run extension hose from, That's awesome. I myself don't have that ability. I have to have the vacuum in the same room with me, and it's really annoying. So I came up with a little bit of a help. It's definitely not a total solution. If you plan on carving gemstones dry, I can't stress enough the need for you to buy a HEPA filter system of some kind, either the kind I'm making here or something that might work better for you. But the HEPA filter system, the amount of dust it pulls out of the air, or I should say, the micron value of the dust it pulls out of the air is very small. It gets super small particles, so it will really protect you and the people around you from silicosis and other things of that nature that can come from carving gemstones. Now, it took me forever to figure out how to pull this filter off, so I figured I'd just show you because it's so simple. You just push down on the nipple and pull up on the filter. So it's the opposite to put one on. You just go ahead and pop the thing on by pushing down. It's really rather simple. So simple that it took me forever to figure it out. We're going to want to put our muffler on next, and then we're also going to want to put it in the box. But when we put it in the box, we're going to want to put it to where the muffler is in one corner of the box and the vacuum hose is in the other, so that we can make a hole in there for the hose to feed out through. And if you're going to do like me and seal this box up and put it inside of another box, make sure that you turn the vacuum into the on position so that all you have to do is plug it into some power and it's ready to go. Having completed this project, I'm really surprised over how well that just the cardboard box actually quiets everything down. Even though I built my own box, I wish I would have just had maybe 2 more cardboard boxes and a couple of more extra hoses to enclose them with just a simple slot out to where it would have probably reduced the sound better than this box that I'm building next. But I built it, so let's show the video of it. Now, in order to make this box, you're going to need 2 of these pieces of styrofoam right here. I happen to already have this styrofoam around my house, so I just used what I already had inside of my garage. You're also going to need a can of this Loctite foam. It worked really well for me, so I would suggest getting this instead of anything else. Now, a tool like this really helps with your measurements and being able to cut straight lines. So we're going to cut 6 pieces. 4 sides 24 by 21, 1 top 22.5 by 24.25, and 1 bottom 24 by 24 inches. And the reason the bottom is so much bigger than everything else is to catch the initial overspray of foam so it doesn't get all over the place and attach the box to anything else. And this insulation is really easy to trim. Take that, and there's plastic on the other side, so you're going to score that plastic. So I went all the way to the store, purchased this, and there's no nozzle for it. So, I mean, that's a complete and total waste. I can't use this can without a nozzle. Now I have to go back to the store. Right, I have my boards. I have my expanding foam insulation. Now, the bottom piece I have is much larger than I actually need. But I'm doing that because I tend to have mistakes being made while I'm doing stuff. And so on the bottom, I'm going to have a little bit of overlap that I can just trim away later. 30 toothpicks. Line it up where you want. Just want a little bit of overhang. Make sure you're spiking it through the right section. And I can actually bury it the full way in there. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 3. This one's going to go over here. Now, as we're putting this box together, we want to keep in mind that we want a little bit of space between each piece so that our foam can get in there and expand in between those spaces. Now, before you start putting your styrofoam in the corners of this, make sure that you put something underneath of it so no extra foam gets on anything it can do any damage to. This stuff is super duper sticky. I think since the hot glue didn't work and I had to use toothpicks, it made it to where all of this was movable for me. And since it was movable, I was able to get the foam sealer in between of all of the boards, and that's definitely going to make a big difference on the dampening, on the sound dampening qualities. Sticking my finger in it where I want it and pulling up on it and tearing it where I want it to tear. And there you have it. This is my all-in-one portable drip or dry system. Now, it's not that portable if you need to carry the vacuum with you, but you can hook up a smaller vacuum if you need to, and you could totally take this on the road with you in a box or in parts. So I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and that notification bell, because you know how YouTube is nowadays. And I'm going to bring all kinds of different content to this channel from here moving forward. You're going to get some stuff like this. You're going to get some stuff about carving rocks. You're going to get some stuff about some mines in the country. And you're also going to get whatever I want to record. Heck, I might just take you to the beach because apparently I live near one that's really pretty or something. I love you for watching. I'll see you soon.